indoda usheshile izigona maholo lahlawela bhedula unqoma amananyembesi umkhonto ubuyana ebende waze bobuthelezi waze ngonomshosho bebe mahwanqeni umntwana simnangwa sonkana umnqanqa wakithi yabona mahina ongasekufa yaba ngamadliso namaloyiso yabayakufa yabakhuluphana uphime bengaphuzwa nkomo ephuzwa mvutshana wabatetesa unoshela kulala unhlangothi bavamnxeba isidlayika yabo singindwandwe isiyangayengane esiyangabantu ngoba sesengamandwandwe sawagunda amakhanda tiwana wabhuqasindwa ishobalayo yesabukwena masibuweni usiyesu umnyakanya untetesana nje sobhubuza ube amaqasha agcekeni ube njengenayithi unyebethi kanti yathweswe ibandla yengumkhizo wofoma nyamana obezala umdunguzeli ube amathanga luphasa umkaqomba njengentombi bathi uyaqomba embulana fulela wanetha wemshamo maniki usowanywa kwavuthulima isidonda sawuyise esawubuye bononkosa sesidonda abantu yebo babihela njengobutshela budonda ubila yebe chibeni kuwena kavula imyamasha ngamathuze ento yawasela ngeloshona ushengo othanda ube ngamthandi ishenge lihle engenasitungela lingabone situngela lifunze ekhalonina unhlanga sabatha amabele ezabafishane simangane situngela tungela wesawenzani impuzi kamnampu yaphuma esandleni zabazulu bathi bayibamba yaphuna uyahluphuluka futhi esengwe yothukela inkwenyangamuhla yahle umkhonto nothulayo abasuthu bangqungquze lapha sosikho sabasuthu omkhonto kuwona emakhanda ahlaza sitshengekasondiya ziyathangana ushiye ngaphi hawu habla sala emthonjaneni inqonya ngqongqozi hambe yachola umzila yachola imgwaqo umbhikisa obekhuluma endlebe enkulu inkabi ebihlomambatha bedla bengcungculusela miyamuza nemvula sikhonyane sihle abantu sabaqeda sibabekele sibekwenini yinkasa yabo umzimba ulukhuni ayebehlula inkwe ebidla amathamba alukhuni ibehlulile abomphuzwana bebezama uphola umkhonto umkhaphuza amasolo tuwana wankashana nyanthi ekushumayeleni ubisini madlana yebo ludlangalele hanangwebu sihlahle simsithi sisithi umaqabana abezala ubhambule wasibalekela waqonde ephazweni wabesebusinda wabesebugoduka uzondla lakithi ozondeka into abazonkana ubemgasela qoqo lasitha khonapho washishuli olweswa nghalimede waba mhlopha belungu idlaphuna ngusomtsebu wasozica wangabantu abazalutho sikwasimatshole sifuna abantu abangabesilo phakathi wocesa yabona kodla nkomo athenga khula andise ambalekele umashiya mahle osho ngwenyamasane ogasa maze ehweba obesikobesi ambalekele shenge soalisa siyathokoza guys sound siyathokoza kakhulu shenge uma usukhona phakathi kwethu noNdlunkulu sizizwa sibusiseke kakhulu uma umuzo omkhulu akaphinda ngene usukhona phakathi kwethu yafana kithi nasenhlizweni zethu zokuthi umqambi nomsunguli umntwana akaphinda ngene ukhona phakathi kwethu siyakwemukela shenge siyathokoza kakhulu inhliziyo zethu zifudumele kakhulu sokalisa uma usukhona ngiyacela ke bafethu inkinga esinayo abantu abangaphandle baningi badlula abangaphakathi manje ngiyacela ukuthi amamarshals angilungisele lenkinga ukuze ngingashiya ukuthi besingekho sikhona hayi ngoba sikhona bo saze sakhona saze sa present saze sabaningi saze sampintshana saze sagcwala sizolanda umyalezo esuyisa kubantu bakithi manje bafowethu ngiyacela ukuthi ongaphandle eze ngaphakathi ongaphakathi ahlale ngaphakathi sicela ukuthi uBhujumbo eze ngaphambili aqedele isethi yakhe Angizange hawu lesizolungiswa manje ngiqala iprogram ezingenziwa nganelo lonke. Guys, no. Yeah, it's fine. Which one works? Ubujumba bezoqedela isethi yakhe. Which position works? Which one works for you?
But you want to take another way. I can move before. Okay.
So they would want to show that they can actually do the same. So clearly you can see the stadiumology will always be the factor. But as you, Doc, have been saying together with Sakina, these people who are here, I have seen there's a number of young people. Are they registered? if those who are here are registered. So are you sure they are all coming to, they are going to vote for you? I mean, we have been seeing in the social media some of the pictures of individuals who have been attending just about every manifesto. So it's been happening, but 29 May will be able to answer some of these questions we have.
Indeed, we will. And it's also interesting because take it from us that the other parties, everybody is interested in what the other is doing, and calls from other parties calling people who are here to find out, is it full? You know, what are they doing? So there is concern from these parties because it is a show of force, Dr. Ranesh.
No, absolutely, Sakina, and I think people are worried. Obviously, they need to be worried. They see the numbers. They are watching very closely. They sit in front of the television screens and just looking, because obviously we had the ANC and the EFF come out here a couple of weeks ago in February. They pulled out the numbers as well. The ANC brought supporters from other provinces. The EFF, according to them, only used numbers from KZN. They did not bus in anyone from outside of KZN. Here with the IFP, we are told that they bring in supporters from other provinces as well. So people are worried. They are concerned. And, you know, I was just having a chat with one of our colleagues at the SABC, Ayanda Mshlongo, outside earlier. And she told me a very interesting thing. This is the first time in the IFP's history that they're actually having a manifesto launch at such a huge venue. Previously, in 2019, they went to Chatsworth, which is a predominantly Indian township towards in eThekwini. And then obviously the other one was in Ulundi, the previous manifesto launch. So this is the biggest venue that the IFP has actually dared to come out here in the only metro in KZN. It does want to make a statement. It wants to show force. It wants to show all the other people just smelling around. They're smelling blood in this very, very significant province of KZN. You know, obviously KZN and Gauteng, like I told you earlier on, KZN 5.7 million registered voters here, Gauteng 24%. So these two provinces are absolutely integral for any political party, any serious political contender who actually wants to make a mark on May 29.
And of course, if we look at the IFP's performance, you know, post-democracy, we know that they joined right on the eve that they decided to contest the 1994 elections. You remember the ballot paper had to literally be altered to add the IFP there. That's how much of a last-minute decision that one was. But if we look at how the IFP has fared since then, they came in, of course, strong at the beginning, and then of course they had those breakaways, as we spoke earlier, Zibachiani with Nadeko, and then we had Zanele Kamakwaza Msibi with the NFP, and that really hurt them. But then lately they seem to be clawing back some of the support that they have lost here in KZN. And talking about, Dr. Ranesh, why it was important for them to come out also after the death of Ushenge, it was important for them to show supporters that the party is still thriving, I would imagine, right?
Absolutely, and especially if I think Doc has the numbers in terms of seeing who voted for who in the past election. I think if you look at the ANC and the IFP, I think the ANC still has almost twice the number of people who voted for it in 2019. Then the question is, how much is the IFP able to then convince and sway some of the people that it wants on its corner, particularly with the emergence of MK? And within your question around the late Principal Telezi, so they have made it a deliberate effort to say this which we are doing is to honor him, it's his legacy, because this is what he left us. I mean, I had the opportunity, Sakina, to attend their gala dinner on Friday, where they basically said what Principal Telezi did for the party is that he created something and then he left it for us. So the only thing that we can do to honor him is to do well, because he created this party in order to be able to serve the people. Yes, it may have been people of KwaZulu-Natal at the time in the main, but now, given that we are a country that serves everyone else, so they would want to see the IFP play a major role in the national politics. Yes, KZN, they want to win it outright, but in the national politics, they also want to have an influence, because they have made it clear they have ambitions of going beyond this province and Gauteng.
It's going to be interesting because, as you say, obviously KZN is a no-brainer. They absolutely have to show well in KZN, because if they don't, that is essentially tickets for the IFP, because even their standing, one would imagine, within the multi-charter, or do we call it a coalition at this point, even though if you speak to different people, they say nothing is cast in stone yet. But if you look at those talks as well, in order for the IFP to have a strong voice, they're going to have to show strongly as well.
Yeah, because the IFP is, their home province is KZN. 90% of support for the IFP emanates from this very instrumental, very important province. The other ones, like I said earlier, is Gauteng. They've got limited support in Gauteng. They've also got support in, little places in Mpumalanga. Those three places where, provinces where the IFP actually increased their vote share in 2019. Between 1994 and the 2019 election, the IFP has been on a steady decline. Their worst showing was in 2014. If you saw what happened in 2014, the assaults came from three directions. First was the ANC under Jacob Zuma, the presidency of Jacob Zuma. Then was the breakaway, the National Freedom Party. It took away around 280,000 nationally, 270,000 provincially votes from the IFP. And obviously the other one was the new player on the scene was the Economic Freedom Fighters. We saw what happened with the EFF between 2014 and 2019. A huge spike in vote share support, lots of support here in the metro in KZN, triple support in eThekwini, and obviously quadruple their support in KZN, the province. So those three parties were actually the ones to watch between 2014 and 2019. But going back to your question, Sakina, regarding the IFP's chances, in that multi-party charter, obviously what they're going to use as leverage is that, remember, in KZN, they're the governing party in a number of municipalities. Where they are not governing, they're part of coalitions. What I am not seeing from the IFP is that they're not using that, sufficiently to publicize, what successes they have been making in, especially the northern areas. In all of those municipalities, they lost lots of support in 2011 when the NFP came on the scene. They kind of clawed back some of that support in 2016, and they did extremely well in the 2021 local government elections. Fortunately, Mangosuthu Buthelezi was still in the picture. He was still around. So they did, the party fared very well in 2021. So like I'm saying, they are not publicizing that. They need to leverage those successes in those northern areas where they are governing, all those municipalities. Maybe that will give them more impetus, give them more strength, more muscle to have more say, when it comes to implementing that MPC, that multi-party charter, after the results are finally released, after the May 29 general election.
The only problem, of course, is there seems to be divergence within the IFP itself with regard to its participation in that multi-party charter. But just to, start what you've just been saying about the numbers there, Dr. Ronesh. So if we look at the general election starting from 1994 to 2019, just by way of the number of seats, the IFP to show the decline and then the subsequent, upshoot again in 2019. So in 1994, the IFP had 10.54% of the vote, and that gave them 43 seats. In 1999, that support went down to 8.58%, 34 seats. Further down in 2004, 6.97%, that equated to 28 seats. In 2009, they had 4.55% of the vote, 18 seats in parliament. And in 2014, that was, as you said, Dr. Ronesh, their worst, 2.4% and 10 seats. But then we saw the clawing back in 2019, where they went up again to 3.38% and 14 seats in the National Assembly. And as you say, most recently, the 2021 local government elections, we saw them going once again from 432 seats in 2016 to 545 seats. They, along with the Freedom Front Plus and the EFF, were the big winners in that local government election out in 2021. So there is an expectation, even now at the polls, the pollings that have been done, that the IFP will see a steady increase. So again, how do they best leverage this, given that they are going to an elective Congress in August? And if they do well, how do they manage to keep this party together?
Yeah, I think perhaps the consensus is that they are likely to do some sort of an increase, but not as significant as we had thought before the entry into the space of the MK. I'll tell you why. Because there were a number of people within the ANC who were disenchanted with the ANC itself, who then felt maybe we'll lend or loan our vote, to use your language, we'll loan our vote to the IFP, but with the MK, so that may not be the case. But then there are still those who are saying, well, we have decided that we are done with the NFP because they don't have their house in order. Maybe it's time to go back home. So that is where I see the increase will come from.
But hold on.
Yeah.
Is that what the, and I know, we kind of comparing apples with pears and bananas and all sorts of things. But what is the local government by-elections telling us? Because from the ones that I've seen, I kind of got the sense that IFP is holding their own at the moment. Dr. Ronesh, you will know better in terms of those stats, but I just want to put that marker down as you complete the Mzwai.
Yes, I think he will say a bit more, but here is the other thing around the local government elections or the by-elections, Sakina. They have this pact with the DA, for example. So where they are strongest, the DA stands out. So, and then in those instances, so you have seen that's where they have been winning with ease. Just come down to the south of the province. It's not been that easy for them. So clearly, that fact, right now, this election, everyone is going in there. No one is standing aside for anyone. So that also is a factor that we should need to look at. But I think Doc, having crunched the numbers, will have a better idea.
How are they looking?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mzwai. Thanks, Akina. So obviously, since the November 2021 local government elections, we've seen around 100 by-election windows actually being held. And of those 100 by-elections, the IFP at most times retain the wards that they initially won in 2021. They made 14 gains. Of those 14 gains, 12 were former ANC wards. So you can see that, if the ANC took away those wards in previous elections, the IFP is clawing back. And I think the other one was one to an independent and another one to Al Jama of all parties. And like Mzwai is saying, there is a pact. There is a pact and agreement between the DA and the IFP. So in certain wards where the IFP is much stronger than the DA, the DA will back off and give support to the IFP, and vice versa with the DA. So I think this kind of arrangement will also feature in this election as well, to a certain degree, because we've already seen Helen Ziller, one of the leaders of the DA, actually go on, publicly stating that, the IFP and the DA will work very closely, especially here in KZN. They will possibly work in a coalition. But will they have the numbers? I doubt it. I highly, highly doubt it. I take you back to the issue of Jacob Zuma. Between 2004 and 2009, Jacob Zuma was elected president of the ANC in 2007 at Polokwane, Limpopo. And then the ANC's results in 2009 shot up. On the national ballot, it shot up to over 700,000. On the provincial ballot, especially here in KZN, it shot up by a whopping 950,000. That was the JZ factor, or the Zulu factor, Jacob Zuma coming into the picture. But concurrently, when that increase for the ANC happened, the IFP only saw a decline of around 220,000 national, 30,000 provincial. So where did the other 700,000 votes for the ANC come from? No one knows. None of the analysts that I have spoken to since then can dissect where those numbers for the ANC came. But Ayanda Mshlongo, our SABC colleague, she and I were having a chat earlier on, and she says people are only focusing on the damage of MK party in this election on the ANC. It's not only the ANC. If you take the example set between 2004 and 2009, where Jacob Zuma came into the picture, he's back into the picture, and the IFP was affected back then. The IFP will be affected again in this election with the Jacob Zuma factor with the MK party. The ANC will be affected firstly. They will be pulled down below the 50% plus one majority, that psychological level. The EFF is also at play in this election. The DA to a certain degree is at play. MK will harm the IFP. Obviously the NFP, the National Freedom Party, has self-imploded since 2016, 2019, 2021. So that damage by the MK, I think lots of people, even the pollsters, all those surveys we are talking about in previous sessions, people are underestimating the damage that MK party is going to inflict on all parties right here in KZN. Watch that space.
And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And it's going to be interesting to see what that then ultimately translates to. If MK makes the sort of inroads and has to inflict the sort of damage that is being predicted, what does that mean for the coalition talks, whether they are loosely formulated at this stage or whether there's a charter in place? Will that still hold? Will the Inkatha Freedom Party be willing to go into talks with Jacob Zuma's Umkhonto weSizwe? Where does that leave the EFF? Where does that leave the DA if the IFP should consider going into talks or forming some sort of coalition with the MK party? All these variables up in the air. But of course, we're here for the 2024 manifesto. From Moses Mabida, it's back to studio for now.
Asenzeni kanjena ke. Ngicela ngoba abaholi sebezongena. TG, we good to go baba. Ngicela ningivulele lapho Makeba. Abaholi sebesendleleni. Kuba kodwa ngoba isonto kwathi ngithi kumnandi ukuba lapha. It's nice to be here. Kumnandi ukuba lapha. Woza mhlaka 29 May woza. Woza mhlaka 29 May woza. Woza Nkululeko. Woza Nkululeko. Jikelele, weshenge jikelele, ushengu jikelele, ikathu jikelele, jikelele. Khona into ekhalayo lapha. Khona into ekhalayo. Awukhale mkhali. Ake siklearishe ke ama comrades lawa ahamba lapha ya. Sesizoyiqalisa iprogram yethu ndaba ezitha siyaxolisa kakhulu Makeba ngokubambelela khona okuncane nje kufanele sikulungise lapha siyathokoza kakhulu baholi for your patience ungasishayi baba umfundisi ngeke sikuphazamise esikhathini sakho senkonzo noma sine delay nje incane singancisha uNkulunkulu indawo yakhe sizoqala ke khona manje abaholi sebeyeza umhlonishwa umengameli iphini likaMengameli usihlalo kazwelonke isihlalo kazwelonke unobhala jikelele iphini lanobhala jikelele nosikhwama kazwelonke bephelezelwa usihlalo wesifundazwe saKwaZulu Natal nosihlalo wesifundazwe saseGauteng khona nje into ezokhala manje ayikhale ayikhale mhlaka 29 ayikhale Deputy SG, Ubabu Albert Mwango, the National Chairperson, Ubabu Blessed Kuala, the Deputy National Chairperson, Umama Utembeni Kamadlopa Mthethwa, Treasurer General Ubabu Naren Singh, bephelezelwa uhlalo walapha KwaZulu Natal ubaba uThamintuli kanye nosihlalo IFP eGauteng uComrade uBonkosi Dlamini bazoqhamuka lapha yanje kungemzuzu emingaphi bese umsebenzi wethu wosuku uyaqala seze sabaningi emabhida sabaningi saze sagcwala stadium saze sagcwala baze bajabha asibonga uNkulunkulu basazokhela yonke le moya nemoyane beyikhona asibalekele abafowethu nodadewethu sebengena the top 7 officials and the provincial chairperson of KwaZulu-Natal was the host, and Comrade Bonkosi Dlamini on behalf of the other provinces who are about to arrive at this point in time, enabling us to kickstart our program. And there the leadership now arrives. Abaholi babantu abaholi bekusasa eliqhakazile eNingizimu Afrika.
nje space isanele. Kulekani ngabakhosi, kulekani. Nazi. Leleni space asanele mfana. Watch out.
Let us now take our seats and our spaces. Siyacela ukuba sonke ke sithathe indawo zethu zokuhlala. Marshals, please ensure compliance. Sicela marshals basilekeleleke uqalisa umsebenzi wethu. Nendawo kuthiwa isekho Simpintshene. Mhlonishwa mengameli, la ngemumva besifake imbala yeqembu lenkatha. Awu sesiphoqa ukuba ngokuyithoba mageba sikususe besikubekile ngoba abantu bangaphezu kwethu. Siplane kancane kanti baningi. Awu Utshela umakhona wakho ukuthi yazi yaphila lento. Iyaphila lento. Long live the IFP, long live. Sizocela ke ma comrades sibambisaneni emsebenzini wethu osuke esiwenzayo nabaholi abazokwethula inkulumo phakathi kwethu abazukusibambelela neze neze. Let me now take this opportunity and request my sister Liesel van der Merwe to take over the program so that we can begin in earnest on this good day. Kodwa nje akenishaya izandla nje nithi it's nice to be here. Sibonga ukuba khona nje. Sibonga ukuba khona. My sister Liesel van der Merwe, over to you.
Sanbonani KZN, Sanbonani! Viva IFP, viva! Long spirit of Schengen, long live! Good afternoon, comrades. Please may I ask that we all rise for the national anthem and the AU anthem. Please may you take your caps and your hats off, and let's rise for the national anthem and the AU anthem. Ngiyabonga kakhulu. Let's take our seats, please. May I take this opportunity to greet the leadership of our party, our President, the Honorable Velenkosini Tlabisa, our Deputy President, Inkosi Mzamo Buthelezi, our National Chairperson, Mr. Blessed Gwala, our Secretary General, Mr. Sipho Seto Ngobo, their deputies, our Deputy National Chairperson, Mrs. Kamadlopa Mtetwa, our Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Albert Nwango, the Chairperson of the Women's Brigade, the Chairperson of the Youth Brigade, and our two Provincial Chairpersons, Mr. A.T. Ntuli and Butbong Nkosi Dlamini. I'm now going to ask our Canon Mbata to come forward, please, to deliver the opening sermon.
Amazwi omlomo wami nokuzindla kwenhliziyo yami makwamukeleke kuwesimakade dwala lami nomhlengi wami ngima egameni likaNkulunkulu Yise nelikaNkulunkulu Indodana nelikaNkulunkulu Moya Ongcwele. Amen. Nginibingelela nonke egameni lenkosi nomsindisi wethu uJesu Kristu. Amen. Ngenxa yokuthi lokhu kubuthana kwethu kwanamhlanje na kwalolu hlobo kungokuqala ukuba sihlangane owesilo umntwana wakwaphindangene engasekho. Ngakho ngiyacela nje umzuzwana ukuba ke sithi wathalala sihloniphe yena. Inkosi mayimuphe kuphumula kwafuthi imkhanyisele ngokukhanya kwayo okungapheliyo kuze kuthi nalapha icilongo selikhala avuke ngovuko lokuqala ngoJesu Kristu inkosi yethu. Amen. Uma sengisho lokho engizokusho ngizocela ubaba uKenon Ntombela enze umkhuleko. Ngizofunda izwi lenkosi esahlukweni seshumi elinane evangelini ngokaJohane Ongcwele ivesi nje elilodwa lesithupha. I am reading from the Gospel according to St. John, the 14th chapter, beginning at the 6th verse. uThomas wathi kuye, asazi lapha uya khona, sikhombisa indlela. uJesu wathi kuye, mina ngiyindlela neqiniso nokuphila, akakho ongeza kuBaba ngaphandle kwami. Ngizobeka umunwe endleleni kulezi zinto uJesu athi uyizo, athi I am the way and the truth and the life. Kodwa ngibeka umunwe, I am putting my finger on the way. Maningi kamagama shindlela. The path, the road, yenzani indlela as the path. Indlela njengomgudu wokuhamba ixhumanisa indawo umuntu asuka kuyo naya kuyo. It connects a point of departure and of destination. That is the way. Uma kwenzekile waphuma endleleni uyaduka ngeke ufike ngesikhathi lapha oya khona. Kungenzeka ukuthi uma uphuma endleleni usuhlwathisa ungene emgodini uhamba ngeenyawo wenyele noma wephuke. Sihamba ngezinto ezisheshayo ke namhlanje na emgwaqeni ngeyimoto. If the car leaves the path, the road, sineyidumbu zaba people die ngoba imoto iphume emgwaqeni. Sinabantu abahamba ngama wheelchair ngoba imoto yaphuma emgwaqeni balimala. Abanye bakhubazeke ngeindlela ezehlukeneyo simply because a vehicle left the path, left the road, left the way. Uma ke usubuka indlela ngaphezulu kokuthi ingumgudu wokuhamba, the way enize ngayo lapha is the way. The way you are listening to me is the way. The way you are behaving yourselves is the way. Noma ngakho kuJesu ma ethi uyindlela, ushuthi uyikho konke umuntu ayikho. Ngakho ke uma umuntu enza into ingagxilanga kuJesu, lowo muntu uyingozi. Angiphinde ngoba ngiyazizwa ukuthi ngithini. If whatever you do is not Christ-centered, what you are doing is dangerous. Kukhona abantu abalinyazwe ngabanye ngendlela amthathe ngayo. Uyabona sixabana nje indlela ongithathe ngayo. Usho ukuthi indlela amthathe ngayo ayinabo ubuJesu. It is not Christ-centered. Nomunye ezama ukuyithethelela athi no, is the way ongizwe ngayo. Is the way you received what I was saying to you. But I didn't mean that. Bengasholoko. The way uma ingekho Christ-centered, it causes confusion. Noma yini umuntu ayenzayo uma ingenabo ubuJesu, bangixolela abantu abasha ngoba ngihlale ngikhala inyembezi ngabo. Uma umuntu omsha ngayintombazane ithi litshitshi isithola ingane, nanga umfana usathi kulibhungu sekuwiseka bani. Yindlela aziphathe ngayo imphuthisele izinto eziningi lo ntombazane empilweni yakhe yonke. Yeke sayazi into okuthiwa itshitshi yini. Empilweni yakhe yonke ngeke sazi ukuthi ubuntombi yini. Ngeke sazi ukuthi ubuqhikiza yini, ubunkehli yini. Kanjalo nomfana uthathe ububhungu ngeke sabazi ukuthi buyini, ubunsizwa yini, ubusoka yini, ngoba usuke ebufaneni waba uyise kaphansi kwesihlahla. Indlela agqume ngayo weqa izinto. He cannot even be a father enganeni yakhe. She cannot be a mother enganeni yakhe, ngoba sonke isigaba nesigaba umuntu simlungiselela isigaba esilandelayo. Yikho namhlanje uthola ukuthi asisavami kwandelwa ngamadoda. ngababona bengabesilisa nje utho akundoda yalutho ngoba he was not prepared for manhood. She was not prepared for motherhood. Uxume wayesoba umama kabani engakafiki ulahleke uphuma endleleni yobuntombi waphuma endleleni yobunsizwa nobubhungu angibuye nganeno. Ngithe uma ulahlekelwe indlela awufiki lapho uyakhona noma ufika late noma kungafikeki. Yonke into eyenziwa ngumuntu uma ingenabo ubuJesu ayiphumeleli ngendlela enikeza uNkulunkulu udumo. Ungezwa lo mbutho kuthiwa hayi ngabe umbutho wethu uhamba kahle indlela esiphethwe ngayo abasiphetheyo. Thola ukuthi nanti ikhaya ngabe leli ikhaya kodwa indlela ubaba asiphethe ngayo ayibuqhakambisi ubuhle bekhaya okhombisa ukuthi ikhaya eliphila ngaphansi kwesandla sikaNkulunkulu. Ngakho uJesu methu indlela usho ukuthi whatever we do it must be Christ centered. Uhambo lwethu ezintweni zonke liyophunyeleliswa ukuthi sihamba endleleni eyiyo. Ngicina ngokuthi ke ithandwa zezulu ngoba ngiyawazi lo mbutho lapho waqala khona waqala ngaso lesi sisekelo sokuba uJesu is the foundation. Uyabona uma ke ngaphaphalaza ekubeni uJesu athi come first kulo mbutho hambani niyolala niyofika lapho eniyakhona nihamba ngama-crashes. Kodwa uma nimi njengoba nisazama nje uNkulunkulu uzohamba nani ngoba uma kuhanjwa ngaye uhamba nabo akabalahla bakhe uthi I will be with you always. Ngakho ke ngane kababa uNkulunkulu whatever we do we must check whether it is Christ centered, whether it has God's approval in whatever I do. Mahlobo wozizosihola baba.
Masikhuleke baba wethu ongcwele isewe Nkosi yethu Jesu, wena ungumdali wamazulu nomhlaba nakho konke ukukhona. Siyabonga baba ngokusihlenga kwakho endleleni siza kule ndawo sesibuthene. Ndodana yakho ithe uma wena ungekho phakathi kwethu konke kuyize. Simema ubukhona bakho obukhethekileyo namhlanje nakulomcimbi esikuwo. Simema isibusiso sakho noholo lwakho lukaMoya oNgcwele uba kuthi konke okuzakwenziwa nokuzawukhulunywa kube yilokho baba okuyoletha isibusiso sakho kithi nakubantu bonke endaweni lapho bekhona. Siyabakhulekela baba baholi balombutho bagcwalise njalo ngomoya wakho ongcwele, ubahole ekwenzeni nasekucabangeni nasekukhulumeni ukuze baze babe njengalezo nceku zakho owayithuma emandulo ukuba zihola abantu bakho baphume ebugqilini bangene enkululekweni. Siyakhuleka baba, siyakhuleka, sikhala kuwe ngokuhlupheka, sikhala kuwe ngezinto ezezisigqilazile nampa abaholi babusiseke babukhulume nabo ukhulume kubo ukuze bahambe phambili besikhiphe ebugqilini bangene nathi kulo ntokozo yakho epheleleyo nakulo ukululeko yakho oyidalele bonke abantu. Siyabonga ke uNkulunkulu wethu, hlala nathi manje sihole ngoJesu Kristu inkosi yethu. Amen.
Thank you very much to Canon Mbata and Canon Tombela for that beautiful message of encouragement and for your blessings over our event. I forgot earlier to introduce our Treasurer General, Mr. Naren Singh. Apologies, TG. Now, without further delay, we will call on our Provincial chairperson, a man that loves the province of KZN, that loves the IFP, a man that is a great example of the legacy of Umtwana Kwapindangene, the incoming Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Councillor 18 Tuli, to welcome us. Viva Mpemba, viva!
Amandla. Viva IFP, viva. Mhlonishwa Mongameli, ngiyathokoza kakhulu kubaphathi bohlele umhlonishwa uhlengwa noLizilfane Remeve, mhlonishwa umongameli wethu uVF Hlabisa, mhlonishwa uDe President inkosi EM Buthelezi, unobhala jikelele umhlonishwa uNgcobo, amalunga onke eNational Executive Committee kakhulukazi uhlalo zonke umhlonishwa uGwala, amalunga eNational Council, amalunga embutho wabesifazane nombutho wentsha iYouth Brigade and Women's Brigade, amakhosi asendlunkulu ikakhulukazi inkosi yakwaphindangene ekhona umntwana uZuzifa uphakathi kwethu, kanye nabatwana bonke basendlunkulu, amalunga emedia akhona khona lapha, members of the media, kanye nabaholi bethu abasoma district nama constituencies nasemazikweni ikakhulukazi ama-volunteer eqembu le-IFP, abezokuphepha na wonke umuntu okhona lapha. Ngizokwenza amazwi okwemukela amafushane kakhulu. Okokuqala namhlanje sihlangene lapha mhlonishwa Mongameli ukuba ibutho lesizwe namakhosi asendlunkulu namhlanje alungiselela impi ingekho phakathi kwethu ingcweti umholi nosondonzima womzabalazo wenkululeko eNingizimu Afrika umntwana wakaphindangene. Ibandla nalo lizoya empini oqala ngqa omunye walo umprofeti wama-Afrika engekho ukuthwala umphongolo wesivumelwane kanye nalo. For the first time in the history of democratic South Africa, the nation is going to battle without Prince Buthelezi. For the first time today, one of the great architects of democracy in South Africa, Prince of Kwapindangene, is not physically present in the midst of his army. Today is the day of the Revolution of Goodwill. It is the day of answers. Our country is facing grave socio-economic challenges. For the past 15 years, South Africa has regressed and plunged deep in crisis. South Africa may be rich in minerals, but is poor in leadership. The lack of accountability, moral and ethical leadership has driven South Africa to be where it is today. Years and years, Prince of Kwapindangene, Umntwana Wapindangene, wielded the leadership of this country on the numerous challenges facing our people because of wrong policies.
Standing by. Oh, thanks, Mxolisi, and welcome back to Moses Mabhida Stadium. And we are here for the IFP's 2024 manifesto launch. Can tell you that the official part of the program has now kicked off. Started with all the acknowledgements of all the dignitaries here today, but also we had the opening prayers by the canons present, and we are now on the part of the program where the gathering is being addressed by the provincial chairperson of the IFP, Tamin Tuli, here in KZN. And just to welcome once more, if you've not been with us all morning, I'm joined by Mzwai Mbeje, who's of course SABC's politics editor, and of course we also have Dr. Ronesh Doraj, who's the head of research at the SABC. So we are now getting to that part where we hear what the IFP will do for South Africa should they make it to the leadership structures of the country. But before we get there, perhaps what we can do, just by the way, as I open this up, just to say to those, because it's been so curious, the number of calls and messages that we've all been fielding about whether the stadium is full. Ladies and gentlemen, the stadium is full. I can tell you that the empty seats you are seeing is simply because people are seeking refuge from the sun. So even on the field where the arch over the Moses Mabhida Stadium throws a shadow, that is where people are standing, as you can see in the picture in shot right now. So it's full. There are people still milling around as well. The stadium is full. I think let's close that one, Mzwai.
No, that one is done. And the three parties, we saw all of them did well. Maybe we need to give them credit. So they were able to fill up the stadium. The degrees, it's something different, but the basic issue that they wanted to convey to South Africans was that they could fill Moses Mabhida. All of them did.
Let's quickly take a look at the manifesto, and then let's go back, Dr. Ronesh, to 2019 and just run through, I suppose, 4 cardinal points, if we will, just to look at what the IFP was seemingly most concerned with. And of course, the economy, like all other parties, is one that nobody can get away from.
Yeah, Sakina, if we look back at the 2019 election manifesto of the IFP, they traded very confidently on a statement called Trust Us. And I think amazingly, if you forward wind 5 years, we've looked at all the banners and the posters, advertising today's event. They've stuck to that slogan of Trust Us. And, they emphasizing, leadership with integrity and those kind of things. And then, good governance. They trumpeted this back in 2019. They also spoke about social and economic justice. Then it came to the economy, crime and justice, education, land, health and welfare, gender equality, human settlements and environment. But Sakina, for me, this is very technical. I want to know more detail. How do these things factor into changing the country? The country has lots of problems. Earlier on, we heard the provincial chairperson, just touch upon the issue of joblessness, unemployment, the high inequality rate in this country. Obviously, we will expect the leader to talk about this in today's manifesto launch, but I think that for me is going to be the standout feature. And obviously, in South Africa in 2024, the big issues for me as a potential voter is electricity, all the blackouts that we are facing, and the water issues. No, potential investor would want to invest in a country that cannot get those basics correct. Guaranteeing electricity supply and guaranteeing water supply. Then the other issue obviously is crime. The IFP is very high, when it comes to the crime issue. They always speak about this. They always, when there's crime in the country, there's instability. Investors want policy certainty. So I think, just before the leader actually speaks today, we had a look at, a statement that the leader made in KwaMashu a couple of days ago. He spoke about youth unemployment. He spoke about crime. He also touched on load shedding. So I think he will touch on those issues again, when he eventually speaks. But I think for all political parties, this election will be about load shedding. It will be about water. It will be because, if you look at all all the provinces. We're in KZN. We don't have water for a number of days. You look at a place like Tongaat. Tongaat didn't have water for around 6 months. There are other places who have done worse. So I think for me, those are the standout issues. You know, the issues with every election always changes. And I think here as well, the IFP needs to be very careful. They need not to be technical. And I think if we look at the previous election manifestos, they've been very technical. We know the issues. We know the problems that the country is facing. But I think take it down to grassroots level. You know, what are the issues that's troubling potential voters? What are the issues that are going to potentially allow you to lend me that vote come May 29 this year?
And of course, the land question. Again, one that has come up in every single manifesto to varying degrees. But of course, one is that's very important for the IFP, especially given what is happening within the royal family, especially. Some people concerned about what this would mean for the land that is being held in trust on behalf of the people. So all of that is going to be something that needs to be spelled out very clearly, right?
I don't see them going much into that because there are a number of issues and disagreements, particularly with the king, perhaps choosing the people who may not necessarily be seen to be aligned to the IFP. Remember, as much as everyone would feel like the king is apolitical, everyone wants to somehow have an influence over what is happening. And I think I may have heard correctly that there was an introduction of one of the royal individuals. So I think I had just stepped outside. So, but all of those things are quite crucial in this. So that is why I suspect he may not necessarily want to center around that, because that could create some potential difficulties and divisions. But the other thing that I need to jump into before I think we cross to the main speech is the fact that then people of South Africa and KwaZulu-Natal have the opportunity to now assess the IFP based on what has been happening. They are in power in a number of municipalities here. The question, Doc, is, has there been a visible and noticeable difference in those municipalities? King Ejwayo, Abaqulusi, Newcastle, Utukela, so all those. I mean, if you go around, you still hear the difficulties and the challenges that are elsewhere in the country. So they also are not going to have it scot-free. People will say, yes, we hear you, but what are you doing here?
But just to go back to the land question, in as much as perhaps the IFP would not necessarily want to dwell on it, they will be forced into that arena, given that this has become a hot potato for other parties as well. So they're going to have to be crystal clear on their position and what it means. They're going to have to be crystal clear in terms of the continued holding in trust of land vis-a-vis what the Constitution actually says, and you know, the right of people to own property and land. So it's going to be one that they may be drawn into whether they want to or not.
At some point, you're quite correct. In fact, you were saying earlier they almost didn't contest the election. That was at the center of it.
So here goes the other one, of course, looking at the triple threat: poverty, inequality, unemployment in the country, and vast tracts of KwaZulu-Natal where the IFP's stronghold is, of course, rural territory. So issues of grants, and we've heard other parties come out very strongly, perhaps even uncharacteristically for the DA, perhaps, you know, to come out so strongly, because previously we would have heard the DA say, well, people need to work, and therefore, you know, we shouldn't be as dependent on grants. And I suppose many would agree with that. However, in the absence of those jobs, what's going to happen with the grants?
Well, to me, as a potential analyst, it's political opportunism. And I think all political parties will speak that kind of rhetoric, you know, especially going to a very highly contested election. You know, the electoral terrain has changed. The electoral terrain is highly charged. So I think those kind of things, whether it's the DA, whether it's the IFP, Obviously, the ANC, they pushed that kind of policy since 1994. It is a vote-winning policy. You know, had the ANC said something in the budget speech or the State of the Nation address with President Cyril Ramaphosa around the SRD grants, the social relief of distress grants, I think the ANC could have suffered in this poll, but they played it very safely. It's strategy on their part. They said, no, the grants will continue until the next year, until 31st of March next year. But had they done it this year, then the ANC would have suffered even more, you know, had they pulled away that lifeline from millions of people that actually rely on those social grants.
And I suppose the reality that's dawning on most political parties is that if you can't get the economy going, there has to be a safety net. You cannot do away with the grants even if you don't necessarily agree with that policy trajectory. There has to be a safety net.
And this is quite interesting, Sakina, because it's somehow entrapping parties that would not necessarily would have been the advocates of those kind of grants. But the fact of the matter is that somehow people need a safety net. So what do? Let's say you get the ANC out of power. So your first order of business can't be to stop those grants, because I can tell you, you'd feel that the next 5 years will be too far for you, the kind of difficulties you would have created. So clearly, the question, I think I've heard the DA, for example, speak about the job seekers grant. So you'd find parties being very creative in how they dish out these grants, because we have created this, and then somehow it has, I mean, many people are already expecting the basic income grant. So how do you then come in and cut out all of that? So it's going to be very difficult. So whoever takes power right now, there will be some form of support that will need to be given until the economy is able to churn out its potential and employs as many people as possible, and then you reduce the number.
And that, of course, is the elephant in the room. Everybody speaks about the economy. Everybody speaks about growing the South African economy. Nobody's been able to really do it, not even at provincial level. We haven't seen the jobs. We haven't seen the economic growth. 2023, 0.6% growth. Not good enough, being outstripped by population growth. So there already you see the story.
No, 100%, Sakina. And obviously, you know, I go back to the point of getting the basics right. The ANC's had since 1994 to get everything correct in this country. Obviously, it was an uphill battle. We had lots of ANC ministers, lots of ANC, NEC members, you know, coming out in the media, openly confessing we never imagined, you know, fighting in the liberation struggle was something totally different. We never imagined ourselves being in government and government being so difficult to actually manage, whether it's national, whether it's provincial, whether it's local government. So I think getting the basics right is where the work actually has to start. It has been 30 years. We are celebrating 30 years of democracy. That is an opportunity for all political parties going into this election as well. We saw what happened in 2004. The ANC rallied around that message. That was the strategy of the ANC, the governing party. And what happened? The result was they achieved their best electoral result ever. They got close to 70% of the vote. You know, you fast forward to 2024, 30 years, if you can use that message, but what do you attach to that message? You can trumpet all the successes you want to, but if you're sitting with high unemployment, skyrocketing youth unemployment rates, that kind of thing, you have a society that's wholly dependent on social grants. You look at the social grants budget, it's around 220 billion a year. I'm not saying million, it's billions. That is a huge amount of money. Just recently in the budget speech as well, we saw the Minister of Finance announcing that they're going to be, tapping into the South African reserves, 150 billion rand. That's a lot of money. So again, it goes back to the messaging. This is a very important election. I think that's the thing that political parties need to get very, very clear. It's all good and well, whether it's the IFP, whether it's the ANC, whether it's the DA, any party for that matter, getting that message correct. That message, looking at the crowds here today, ask yourself, how many of these people actually go out after this event and read those manifestos of those parties? These parties, they vote based on identity mostly. If you look at the ANC, IFP, EFF to a certain degree, they vote, they vote based on identity. They've got an emotional attachment to certain parties, to the ANC. Obviously, here we're talking about the liberation narrative. Obviously, the IFP has that attachment since 1975. I remember reading, at that time when the IFP was launched as Inkatha, their membership was as high as 1.7 million. So that blind loyalty is there. Going back to the manifestos, how do you simplify those manifestos? These issues that the manifestos actually talk about, do they actually interest the people that's sitting here in these stadiums?
Well, let me attempt to respond, just in part to that. Having done this for many years and, being able to get feedback anecdotally from people, and even just looking at what we've been doing on SABC Morning Live with the parties and sending their leaders to unpack those manifestos, I must say I'm surprised at the number of people who actually do read the manifestos. If you look at the questions that we've been receiving, people have read those manifestos. Is that not a sign of the electorate changing and perhaps the parties not in tune entirely with how the electorate is changing them, right?
I think we sometimes would base our own assessment or assumptions on the generality of the public, and there are those who are very interested in what is happening. When you want to see if people are paying attention to a particular issue, let whoever is the speaker speak about the issue which is the hottest one at the moment. Let it get mentioned. You will hear the response. So that does tell you that people do pay attention. It's just that they choose. If someone reads the manifesto, they'll probably skip the issue of the land because for whatever reason they have no interest, but they'll go straight into the issue of the economy because that's where they have an interest. Some people may not necessarily read the entire manifesto, but they would look at areas where they have an interest in. That's where you'd see that actually everyone has an interest in this, because when all is said and done, Sakina and Ronesh, this is about them, this is about their country. If you are worried about employment, so you would want to know what is the IFP saying about us getting jobs. Then when you look at the manifesto, you'll probably, if you don't want to read everything, you'll just go and check the section that has jobs. So clearly, I agree with you, and some people do read. Of course, there'll be those who would want to hear from the third party. So what are they saying? We go with the flow, and then there's also the loyalty card. So it doesn't matter if someone says I'm IFP or INC or EFF or DA, it doesn't matter who says what, that is what I'm voting. So we have different categories of people.
I would have to agree with that. But then, of course, the issue of crime, talking about something that all South Africans are very, very invested in. And looking at the IFP and what they said in their 2019 manifesto around this, like the DA in the Western Cape, they also have been advocating for a devolution of powers of the policing functions. They want harsher sentences. They want stuff like manual labor for prisoners and that sort of thing. It said there, I'm just trying to find it very quickly. I'm sure I read this. Increased minimum sentences with hard labor for prisoners. I knew I wasn't dreaming that one up.
No, I think I understand why. Remember, the IFP has always been federalist in its approach. It believes in federalism. Yeah. Same thing with the DA. They believe really that provinces should be given more powers. So that's why for them it makes sense that they would rather have powers more devolved to the provinces, which is something that the ANC is completely against. Never mind that somehow they had to compromise on the provinces. But at the core of who the ANC is more believing in the unitary approach of doing things. I mean, wait not for issues around employment and the deployment of people. I can tell you now, the provinces will be done away with in a second. But, it's not that easy now, because what do you do to some of your comrades who are now benefiting there?
But surely that cannot be our primary focus, because the reality is these are questions that need to be discussed, especially with a constrained fiscus. What can and can't we afford as a nation? You spoke about tapping into the contingency reserves, Dr. Ranesh, and the question around this, I think more pertinently, is whether this is a once-off. Minister Enoch Godongwana very clear in explaining that this is not an anomaly, it is done, there's nothing untoward about it, which is not, of course, the crux of the question. The question is, are we going to keep tapping into these finite reserves, or is this a once-off? And that's what people are concerned about. But moreover, going back to Mzwai's point, where is it that we can trim the fat of these administrations?
I think, remember, we're dealing with politicians, Sakina. So I'm very concerned, I'm very worried, because once you get a taste of tapping into those reserves of the Reserve Bank, those contingency reserves, there might be a temptation, should there be a need in future. Like I pointed earlier on, you look at the social grants budget. Social grants are the heart of this country at the moment. Close to 20 million people are actually reliant on those grants, 220 billion a year. So if that temptation is there this time around, what's stopping the politicians at the apex from doing it again? I understand it's finite resources, but South Africa is a very wealthy country in terms of minerals and that kind of thing. So I think the temptation will be there in future. Just going back to the...
Just to interject there, everybody who's not in power right now, nationally, may be crying foul about that. Everybody may be crying foul about the fact that we have the provincial layer of government in those three tiers. The question is, will they do away with it if they were to take over from the ANC, or will the temptation be to reserve the status quo and thereby, also make sure that you are able to deploy more largesse to your supporters?
In fact, it will be very interesting if that Sakina were to happen. From what we know of these parties, we would expect the EFF to do away with them, and that's where that question will come, because they don't believe in provinces. But with the with the IFP and the DA, they would actually want to even strengthen the provinces, because that is what they believe in. So that is why it is going to be very interesting should there be no one who then achieves the outright majority, because you would have to have parties that don't necessarily believe in the same things having to come and work together. But again, the question that we must still ask, is that not going to be crippling? We have seen in municipalities, let's be honest. I don't even know how many mayors in Johannesburg we have had. Because of the instability of these coalitions. So just imagine at a national level if there are those disagreements. We have the president every 3 months, obviously. That can't be sustainable, because, the president has got a lot of related benefits. Can you imagine you going around, you facing with all these black cars because we've changed Sakina?
But you see, that's the problem, isn't it? Does the president need all those black cars? There are systems in the world where being a president is not about the prestige of having all of those black cars and the benefits that accrue to it. It's more of a service to the people. Why can't we think like that as a nation?
Sakina, on that point of the presidential cavalcade, a whole number of cars, I'm reminded of the former Netherlands Prime Minister. He used to actually cycle to work on a daily basis, including his ministers. They used to use public transport in the Netherlands. So I'm thinking, obviously, we're way out from that. We're very far off from, reaching that level. But yeah, on that point, I'm also reminded of the EFF leader recently, Julius Malema. We are talking outside very casually. We're just talking about, there was this very fractious relationship between the EFF and the former leader of the IFP, Mangosuthu Buthelezi. But just in December this year, the EFF leader, Malema, actually accused the IFP. He was actually questioning why the IFP mayors have 9 bodyguards. One has 14. I think the speaker has 9 bodyguards, and one of the mayors in one of the municipalities here has 14 bodyguards. And he was questioning why. And he even pointed fingers about financial misappropriation and that kind of thing. So again, going back to that point of that largesse, it's all about political patronage. If you remove any layer of government, you take away that support, that political patronage. How do you dish out favors to your comrades or to those people, your allies who are close to you? Obviously, if you look at a party like the ANC, they've got that high structure, which is the National Executive Committee. That's a very powerful structure within the within the ANC. If you take away a particular layer of government, and that impacts on those NEC members, say the person is a premier or he's a provincial MEC, that kind of thing, those people are directly affected. So that political patronage, narrative goes back to them as well. You take away all those benefits from them, they might withdraw in retaliation their support for you in that powerful structure, the NEC of the ANC. So again, patronage politics, it goes much, much deeper than that here. So it's all good and well to talk about this in your election manifestos, national, provincial, local government. We've seen the ANC even confess as well. Local government is where the ANC is at its weakest.
But what we also should not underestimate is, of course, the task ahead for the IFP, which is, of course, of keeping the party together. Because, as we heard there from speaker after speaker, punctuating the point that this is the first election without Dr. Mangosuthu Buthelezi around or being able to be there in person. Of course, his face will still be there on the party paraphernalia. Did I say paraphernalia? Pamphlets and other. But what I'm saying is that his face will still be there. But of course, it is something that the party needs to contend with, because we know as well that there are differences amongst those who are leading the party at the moment.
I think the biggest test to actually look into what we have just spoken about is their next elective conference, which is a few months away. Right now, they can be able to say we're pulling together in order to be able to honor him and win the elections. So that is easier. But now, we already know, as you've said. For example, let's just speak about the multi-party charter. We know that the provincial leadership of the IFP is not so, and the Youth League is not so much in favor of this multi-party charter, but the national leadership of the IFP has already committed itself to this.
I think you're being kind. They are not so much in favor, they are against it.
Absolutely. And then what does that tell you, especially Sakina and Doc, because we know that the people who are touted to contest the leadership in August is the current president, Velenkosi Nhlabisa, and Tamintul, who's the provincial chairperson. Already you can see how are they going to manage those divisions, given that in terms of their approach, they already don't agree.
So that raises a very interesting question then, and which is, what I was trying to ask Mkhuleko Hlengwa about earlier on, because if the IFP then agrees to whatever the prescripts of the multi-party charter may be at this stage, when they go to that elective congress in August, and if they were to elect new leadership, what would that mean for their continuation within that multi-party charter?
I think, at the August Leadership Congress, if a new leader emerges, obviously, the terrain will change. Maybe the objectives of the party in terms of strategy will change. So maybe it will affect the MPC, I think. Just going back to the point of what the main issue or the main problem for me with the IFP is that there is a lack of succession planning within the party. And I think that has been hampering the party and affecting the party since when it was reformulated back in July 1990. If you look at the history of the party, the only leader that the party has ever known was Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Obviously, he stepped down in 2019, Nhlabisa came in. But other than him, there's no one else that we know of the party. We just know the spokesperson, Hlengwa, no one else. And obviously, he's the chairperson of SCOPA as well. So I think that lack of succession planning within the party can be its biggest downfall. You look at the previous breakaways, we had Nadeko, led by the former chairperson, Ziba Giane. That didn't go so well. He hopped from party to party, I think 8 in total. And then the big damage to the IFP actually came from the NFP, another former IFP chairperson, Zanele Magwaza Msibi. And obviously we saw the damage in 2011 and, lots of damage in 2014. It was so embarrassing to a point for the IFP in 2014 that it actually lost its official opposition status in this this very province where 90% of its support comes from. So I think that was a wake-up call for the IFP back then. What needs to happen in 2024 in this election, and most especially in August this year? Something needs to change. The party is too stuck in its old ways.
But fast forward to 2016 then, in the local government election, and we see the NFP having their own sort of struggles, and they start to struggle, and ultimately to a point where they are now at a crossroads, because we don't know who's who in the party anymore, who's running the party. There's contestation around everything in the NFP. Is there a likelihood of some of those people coming back into the IFP fold? And if so, how would that impact the current picture? Is it likely to cause any significant sort of shifts, or would it just be mild ripples, as it were?
I don't think so. Yes, there would be those who will go back, but there are so many choices on the table. The EFF picked up a number of votes in 2019. Yeah, 2019 here. So you wouldn't know where some of those votes came from, because already the signs that the NFP was in trouble were there. Remember, in 2016 they didn't contest because of the internal squabbles. So you would have people who no longer want to be associated with the IFP, but the new hope they had thought was going to serve them is no longer giving them any option. So what do? I mean, you have a party like EFF, which we saw, it picked up a lot of votes. You have the MK party that is entering into the scene. You also have the ANC, because some of them even went to the ANC. Yes, they may get some of those people, but I don't think they will make a significant change. So it will be up to the IFP itself, perhaps, to go out there and get new voters to be able to bolster its own campaign. Because as the doc had said earlier, so the entry into politics of MK is actually affecting all parties. Obviously, it's the degree of that affecting that perhaps will determine. But the fact of the matter is that ANC, EFF, DA and IFP and NFP will definitely be some of the casualties of the entry into politics by MK.
So if we look at all the various permutations that could play out, I go back to the multi-party charter. And if the IFP is locked into the multi-party charter, where does it leave them if, for example, you have a better showing by parties like MK? Because if we look at MK and the IFP, the erstwhile leader, Dr. Mangosuthu Buthelezi and Jacob Zuma, there seemed to have been some sort of toenaandring there between the two before the latter passed away. So what then happens? Does the IFP then totally shut out any other negotiations with other parties, or do they, as Mkhuleko Hlengwa was saying earlier, they are contesting this election in own right? They are not a Strooi Macy for anybody. So will they then be able to say, okay, this is going to be more of a loose arrangement with the multi-party charter? Can they say that? Or would they have to really go back to the drawing board and think about what could possibly play out here?
In fact, let's start with the multi-party charter itself. Maybe I'll be a bit harsh on the multi-party charter itself. Let's be honest. Just look at the numbers and look at the parties that are involved. At the moment, either nationally or even provincially here, they don't appear to be able to garner the numbers that would be able to make them create anything at this stage, unless some sort of a miracle is performed. And what does that say? It basically then forces these parties, remember, they still retain their individual identities. It then forces them to be able to seek new partners. That's where your question comes in. Don't be surprised if you see EFF and IFP start to talk together. Don't be surprised when you see the DA and the ANC, or the ANC and the IFP. So, because the fact of the matter is that the current construction of the multi-party charter and the parties that are part of it don't have the numbers as yet. I mean, outside of the DA, IFP, Freedom Front Plus, very limited. Action SA yet to be proven nationally. So other parties are really smaller parties. I don't think they'll bring so much on the table unless there's a huge shift, because voters may have their own minds.
So what would you say? Should all of these parties really be hedging their bets at this point? Because I've also, struggled to think of why they haven't really cemented what this would mean. If we are serious about, a coalition, we would hammer out all the details about it now and not wait to see how each one performs if we were so confident about who we are and which role each one of us is supposed to play in that coalition moving forward. At least that would be my thinking, Dr. Ranesh.
To be very honest, Sakina, I've never looked very closely at the multi-party charter. Obviously, I watched all the media briefings and what was being said and that kind of thing. But I think for the IFP in this election, you touched on this earlier on, they can play strategy, to their favor, like what the EFF did. I think in 2016, 2019, they said that, no, we're not in a coalition with you. We're not attaching ourselves to any kind of formal agreement with you. But, should something happen, should the numbers don't come in our favor, then maybe we can talk. So I think that's what the leadership of the IFP can do. Keep that loose arrangement at the back of your mind, because, KZN is going to look very different post May 29. Mzwai spoke about it, you spoke about it. The big factor here is not any other party but MK. As I was driving, by the way, to the stadium today, for the first time, I saw banners on the M4 highway. And whose face is on those banners? It's Jacob Zuma. We saw what happened to the Jacob Zuma factor for the ANC in 2009. 700,000 national votes moved to the ANC. 950,000 moved to the ANC on the provincial ballot in KZN. So the very same thing is possibly going to happen in this election. So I think the IFP, if it really wants to play its cards close to its chest, I think just keep it open. Don't tie yourself to any formal arrangement. Be strategic like the EFF, and the EFF played in the ANC space before. They know strategy, they know political strategy, and they know how the strings behind the scenes are pulled. They know how to horse trade. So I think the IFP can take a lesson from the young guns like the EFF, especially in KZN.
And of course the Jacob Zuma factor, especially here in KZN. And I would imagine, what do you think the strategy is for MK? Because, you speak about the IFP lack of succession planning. MK is a brand new party, but who is MK beyond Jacob Zuma?
I think that is their most difficult. In fact, I think outside of this, we're saying the strength of MK is former President Jacob Zuma. The weakness of MK is former President Jacob Zuma. You know why I say that? Because beyond former President Zuma, so what now? Currently, in terms of the constitution, he's not eligible for anything. So even if MK were to win 100% of the vote, he can't be president anymore. We know that even going to parliament, given that he has been jailed, it's not even possible. So then the next question is, so who is MK? So he is not a young man anymore. So what if then he is like, you know what, I'm tired now, I need to take a back seat. Because he has been the glue, he has been the face, he has been the magnet that is getting people to the MK. So outside of him, so what are the structures? Even if, let's say, there are coalitions, who are you going to sit down and negotiate with? Do you know who are those people? It can't be a former president all the time. Yes, somehow he may give directives here and there, but there are areas where you need to sit down and look into the detail. Who do you speak to? That is why I'm saying he may be his strength, at the same time he's their weakness.
And of course, the other thing we can't get away from here in KZN, Dr. Ranesh, you touched on the bodyguard situation and the crime, the violence, the political killings in KZN is of course key, and many people saying that they are concerned given how the electorate, how fractured this pie is becoming, that this could potentially lead to even more strife in the political arena. This is of course something that everybody is concerned about.
Yeah, and I think they rightfully should be concerned about it. My thing is that this issue has not been brought up in the media sufficiently leading to this May 29 election, and I think it should. If you look back at the Morane Commission that looked into political killings, there was a very chilling testimony by the former premier, former chairperson of this province, Senzo Mkunu, and he spoke about the branch general meetings of the ANC. And he said when he went to those branch general meetings, he was, horrified because, people were not free to vote for the comrades that they wanted to install. And when you dared raise your hand, there was another person behind another person holding a gun just to intimidate that person. So it's that kind of politics in this province, and I think politicians have not paid too much attention to that matter, and I think they should have, because if you look at all the political killings, not one court case has been, not one person has been,
right.
facing jail time, that kind of thing. Yeah.
My apologies for interjecting there, Dr. Ranesh Doraj. We'll come back to this conversation. But right now, the moment that those who have come out here to Moses Mabhida have been waiting for, and of course those of you sitting at home waiting to hear what the IFP has to say, the promises that they will make to the electorate for the 2024 general election. We have now Mr. Naren Singh introducing the leader of the IFP. Let's take you to the podium.
Today, to introduce our keynote speaker. But before I do that, our Chief Marshal, Alderman Ngobese, we are getting calls on the stage that people are being prevented from entering the stadium. Please, please, please do something about it. Please do something about it. People are calling us, they want to come in, but they are not being allowed to enter. Honorable President, I wish we had the energy of the Elephant Divas. What an energetic performance here this afternoon. Give them a big round of applause, the Elephant Divas. But we also realize that a number of people are running away from the sun and getting into the shade. But soon enough, the sun is going to move, and we'd request you to please take your seats. It's now my pleasure to introduce a son of the soil, a son of the KwaZulu soil, Natal soil, a son of the South African soil, someone who comes from the royal family and started his career in activism at a very, very young age. I am told at the age of 13, this individual was actively involved in programs that were initiated by our President Emeritus, Mtwanaka Pindangele. He studied to be a teacher, he became a school principal, but his interest in politics overrode his interest in education. He was a branch chairperson, a ward councillor, a deputy mayor, a mayor, Secretary General of the province. He was an leading official in SADESMO, the student movement. So here is a gentleman that has climbed up the ranks in the Inkatha Freedom Party from a very, very young age. But I think the cherry on the top was in 2019, when he was elected unanimously as the president of the IFP in the presence of our founder, Mtwanaka Pindangele, Prince Buthelezi, who endorsed his presidency. And since the passing of Prince Buthelezi, Bulawayo studied under our master and our guru to become the leader of the IFP and to follow the mission, values and the teachings of Kwapindangele. With those words, we are very proud to have a leader like President Thabisa, who is going to be presenting our manifesto to South Africa today. And please give him a resounding applause as he comes to the stage to present the manifesto of the IFP. Bulawayo. Bulawayo.
Long live the spirit of Shenge, long live. Long live the spirit of Shenge, long live. Viva IFP, viva. Viva IFP, viva. Thank you very much, Program Director, Comrade Liesel van der Merwe and Comrade Mkulego Hlengwa. Want to take this opportunity to firstly greet both Canon Mbata and Canon Tombela, who led us with devotions during the beginning of our gathering here today. Want to greet all members and leaders of the NEC. Firstly, the Deputy President, Inkosi Yasembongweni, the National Chairperson, Comrade Ukwala, the Secretary General, Comrade Ungobo, and all members of the NEC who are gathered here today. Want to greet our premier candidate and the chairperson of KwaZulu-Natal, Comrade Tami Duli, the chairperson of Gauteng Province, Comrade Bongosi Dlamini, all amakhosi asendlunkulu akhona phakathi kwethu, bingelele ngokukhethekileyo kwinkosi yesizwe sakwaButhelezi, umntwana uZuzifa Buthelezi, kanye nondlunkulu ukaMohale, bingelele kumntwana uPhumzile, umntwana uSibuyiselwe, yonke amalungu omndeni owaphinda ngene akhona phakathi kwethu. Besawubingelela uMesi Sihlabisa, uMazwide, uThandeka Hlabisa, umndeni wonke wakwaHlabisa okhona phakathi kwethu. All our honored guests, leaders of the clergy who are present, izinduna, amabutho who are present amongst us, and all members of the IFP from all the provinces of South Africa who are the witnesses in the launch of our manifesto 2024. Want to greet all members of the diplomatic corps present. Want to greet Themba Gwabeni, the team leader of all our delegation from Northwest, as well as Alpheus Makumu, who is also a team leader for the delegation from Limpopo. As I rise to the stage today to present the IFP manifesto, I do so with a strong sense of hope and courage, because I know South Africa is a beautiful country. South Africa is formed of people who constitute a resilient nation, men and women endowed with special skills, talents, and determination. The people of South Africa know how and when it is time to stand together and fight for a common purpose. During the era of apartheid, the people of goodwill stood together and set South Africa politically free in 1994. The people of South Africa have demonstrated that we are able to excel and overcome. We have competed with other nations of the world, as the Bafana Bafana did in the World Cup, in the Africa Cup of Nations in 2024, as the Springboks did in the World Rugby Cup in 2023, and the Team South Africa also demonstrated in the 2023 Special Olympics World Games in 2023. Our capacity as a nation has been demonstrated by Taylor, the Best African Music Performance winner in 2024. Again, by Walter Kellerman, Zakes Bantwini, and Nomtebo Zibote with the Global Best Music Performance in 2023. Clearly, as the nation and the people of South Africa, our country have a capacity to excel and overcome. Unfortunately, when it comes to the socio-economic conditions in our country, things are worse than 5 years ago in South Africa. The economy is barely growing and unable to create job opportunities. The rate of unemployment is now sitting at 41%. Crime is devastating our communities. Our women and children cannot go freely and safe in our streets. Load shedding have destroyed our economy to a point of collapse. The cost of living keeps going up. Increasing fuel prices push up the cost of food and transport. After 30 years of gaining our freedom, hard earned in our country, South Africa stand on the brink of collapse, not because of any lack in our people, but because South Africa has been subjected to poor governance, to weak leadership and corruption. In 2024, across the length and breadth of South Africa, there is one resounding call, the call for change. In every village and in every city, in the schools, in the ship-ins, in the hostels and boardrooms of our nation, on the factory floors and in the queues to access services, the call for change is heard loud and clearly. It is coming from the economists and from children who have no transport to go to school. It is coming from the unemployed, from the victims of crime, from the businesses and households struggling with load shedding. The call for change is echoed through our nation. All the people of South Africa, we are united in calling for change to happen now before it is too late. Because in 2024, South Africa stands on a precipice. Behind us is the litany of empty promises and the governance failures that have brought us to this point of a brink towards failure. Below us is the chasm of economic collapse. As we stand here today, I, however, have a courage because we can still see a better way. We can envisage the South Africa that was within our grasp in 1994 when we crossed the threshold into democracy. Today, we must make a way to arrive at the South Africa we envisaged in 1994. Today, we must bridge the chasm and avoid the utter destruction of our country. In the past few weeks, politicians have stood in this very podium and tried to convince you that it is not as bad as you see, and the chasm is not that deep. They have tried to convince you that the economic collapse will never happen, and if it does, it should be blamed on someone else. You have heard all this and you have not found hope. But today, the bridge builders, the IFP, have come here to you not to give empty promises and also not to create false hope. A different message will emanate from this place today, because the IFP speak to the truth. Today, we come as the game changers and the history makers who are ready to bring change in 2024. The IFP has come to launch an election manifesto that offers exactly what the people of South Africa need. Solutions to our problems. The IFP has come here today to tell you the honest truth and give you hope. Today the IFP is launching a manifesto that contains the message of hope and that will bring change in our country. The manifesto we launched today contains solutions. It contains practical approach to the biggest crisis facing our nation. And our manifesto will give you reasons why you must go and vote on the 29th of May and vote the IFP. The IFP's manifesto is the result of an intensive campaign of listening to all people of South Africa, engaging with experts, assessing and considering the debates and fine-tuning the views of the people of South Africa. Every policy we put forward in the document I'm going to present today has been carefully designed to fix the problems efficiently, cost-effectively, and in a sustainable, just, and equitable way. The IFP is unique in that we do have the courage to take bold steps. We are not held at ransom by a need to please. We are not held at ransom by a need to please ideologies that have no place in a democratic South Africa. The only limitation on the solutions we design is our demand that they be just and can be justly applied. We put our principles at the core of everything we do. We may not be the oldest liberation movement, but we have long outlasted our peers in terms of consistency and principles. Through the process of listening and preparing this manifesto, the IFP recognized 13 fundamental challenges requiring focus on 13 specific items to deal with the challenges facing our country. We therefore designed a 13-point plan which will be a package of solutions and the program of action to turn things around. The 13-point plan will make every South African understand why on the 29th of May he or she must go and vote the IFP. The first point is about jobs. Trust us to get you working. Political freedom has not delivered social and economic justice for all. In fact, South Africa has the most pronounced levels of inequality in the world. Our future, our freedom, our dignity depend on our ability to work, but our economy has stagnated, causing devastating levels of unemployment, specifically amongst our youth. The IFP therefore champions inclusive, market-led economic policies that empower all South Africans and contribute to our country's overall economic growth and development. We believe that economic emancipation is central in addressing the imbalances of the past. The IFP will get South Africa working. An IFP government, therefore, will do the following to get South Africa working. We will enforce a set of 80:20 employment target. Companies must employ a minimum of 80% of the people of South Africa compared to the foreign nationals. The IFP will reserve job opportunities in the entry-level and low-skill sectors for South Africans only, focusing on our youth. We will reserve the small enterprise market and the spaza shops industries for the people of South Africa, including support of the local business economy, and this will effectively mean all the spaza shops in our town occupied by foreign nationals will have to be returned to the people of South Africa in order that our economy develops and improves the lives of the people of South Africa. By so saying, we are not xenophobic, but South Africans must come first. Every job opportunity must be given to a person of South Africa before considering any foreign national. We will revamp local economic development and restructure the Small Enterprise Development Agency to reduce business failures and create meaningful jobs. We will support the expansion of the industrial cannabis and hemp industries, which will be a catalyst to the local economic growth and job creation. We will roll out an unemployment graduate grant of 3,000 rand to a fixed period to assist all the unemployed graduates in finding a meaningful employment. We will redirect some of the billions spent on CETA to ensure that all graduates are given a 12 months internship at municipalities, provincial and national government. We will support the small-scale farming as a measure to revitalize the economy while recognizing traditional leaders as a key player in land management and the transformation of our rural economy. We will overhaul restrictive labor legislation that impedes job creation. We will promote fiscal restraint and limit public debt. We will further refuse the bailout for state-owned entities and instead resuscitate SOEs, fostering competition and innovation where possible, while forming public-private partnership for SOEs that cannot be resuscitated. We will open the energy market and diversify energy generation as the few examples of creating job opportunities in South Africa. The second point, crime, corruption, and gender-based violence. Trust us to keep you safe. Corruption, coupled with inefficiency and apathy, has eroded the capacity of government to deliver. Billions of rands have disappeared in the corrupt hands of our government. As a result, the most vulnerable amongst us have been deprived of opportunities for development and advancement. Levels of crime and violence are staggering, particularly amongst women and our children. The IFP, therefore, believes that the immediate and radical reform is required to strengthen the justice system, security, military, and intelligence services. The IFP will take bold measures to protect women, children, and the most vulnerable in our society by doing the following. We will work with communities to end crime by working closely with community policing forums and providing safe channels for citizens to report criminal activities. We will support traditional courts and enhance levels and enhance roles for traditional leaders in the provincial and local government spheres, which will help to achieve greater peace and security in our communities. We will open a national debate on the reinstatement of the death penalty to deter violent crimes. We will revisit legislation to ensure that bail is denied to perpetrators of violence against women and children, particularly on cases of murder. We will promote as a new government that anyone who is involved on a murder case does not get a bail until he or she is found not guilty. We will ensure that specialized courts to deal with corruption and gender-based violence and femicide are fully operational. We will ensure that dedicated SABC officers are specially trained to deal with GBVF and are stationed at all police stations where GBVF is rampant. We will ensure that the survivors of the GBVF can easily access the services they need. We will increase the SANDF resources and equipment, improve training, establish effective intelligence gathering, combat corruption and criminal activity, and improve the welfare of military veterans. We will ensure that the SANDF is skilled and prepared for traditional biological, cyber, or electronic warfare. We will deploy the SANDF to communities where social ills, crime, gangsterism are rife. We will ensure a strong, capable, capacitated, and funded National Prosecuting Authority, and we will support restorative justice as an effective alternative to traditional punitive measures. Point number 3, illegal foreigners. Trust us to put South Africa first. The IFP believes that the failure of the state to manage migration has led to national crisis. The IFP position is that while fairness is necessary, illegal migrants are law breakers who pose a threat to safety and security of our country, while placing a heavy strain on South Africa's resources. The IFP government, therefore, we will immediately deploy the SANDF to ports of entry and borders and fortify our borders through the construction of border walls to strengthen border controls and ensure the integrity of our borders. We will invest in state-of-the-art border control technology, including drone technology, while resourcing border management to prevent illegal migration, human trafficking, drug smuggling, terrorism, and other cross-border criminal activities. We will invest in a standalone, capacitated national immigration inspectorate. We will ensure that all companies in South Africa comply, that 80% of the labor they employ are the people of South Africa. Any company that transgresses that, we will take firm actions because we believe South Africans must come first. Fourth point, load shedding. Trust us to secure energy future. South Africa faces a severe energy crisis due to corruption, mismanagement, and lack of strategic vision. Our country's energy supply has become unreliable, unsustainable, and unable to support effective and growing economy. Alternative sources of energy must be embraced as we go into the future. The IFP government, therefore, will stabilize the electricity power grid. Eskom is a national asset which has been mismanaged into a state of severe despair. Eskom must be managed through a public-private partnership in order to ensure that Eskom is able to sustain the economy of our country and create job opportunities for our youth. We will further subsidize the price of electricity for poor and historical disadvantaged communities. We will deregulate fuel. The fuel industry is excessively regulated. Fuel imports should be thrown open to anyone who can provide necessary guarantees and who can build refineries that meet the essential safety standard laid in terms of our law. We will cut unnecessary fuel levies, as these should not be used to subsidize expenditure in hidden areas unrelated to fuel industry. We will maintain the coal production, acknowledging that coal remains a key source of energy. Whilst coal is being used for energy generation, it also has the potential to produce large variety of chemical products. The IFP will favor the extension of the use of gas for domestic purposes, especially for cooking and heating. We will promote wind turbines and solar power, which presents an enormous opportunity for private investment in the generation of power for own use and supply into the grid. We will install solar panels in all the new government houses that we will build as a new government. We will ensure that nuclear energy remains part of the mix in the hands of the state. We will support the hydroelectric power generation, efficiently utilizing the waste resources of our country. The benefits must be explored, researched, developed, and made available to local communities and companies in our country. Local and indigenous communities must benefit from reduced tariffs. When the IFP can be given an opportunity, load shedding will be a thing of the past. We will not behave like a member of a ruling party who stood in parliament during the SONA debate and said, load shedding is not the end of the world. The IFP says, load shedding is the end of the world in our economy. Load shedding is the end of the world in our people when they are subjected to darkness during the night. The fifth point in our 13th plan is education. Trust us to equip and empower you. South Africa's education system needs to be rebuilt. It is hammering our children's future and the future of our country. Many of our children have no desks or books or toilets, and their education is held at ransom by unions who seems to be accountable to only themselves. The matric pass rate has been lowered to 30%, which has compromised the quality of our education. It is no surprise, therefore, that the economy is underperforming due to the lack of skills. The IFP believes in free, equitable, and quality basic education for all, and state-sponsored higher education for poor and low-income families to address the inequalities of the past. Inclusivity is the central tenet to the IFP's educational vision. The IFP government, therefore, under education, will do the following. We will implement free basic education and state-sponsored higher education for the poor and the low-income families as a fundamental component of our education policy. We will enhance teaching and learning standards while providing adequate resources, classrooms, laboratories, libraries, and every resource a child needs at school in order to develop maximally. We will roll out free scholar transport and efficiently run nutrition scheme in all public schools with no element of corruption, as we saw it happening in KwaZulu-Natal at the beginning of the year. We will implement comprehensive school transport policies that prioritizes safety. We will ensure strict regulations that will be enforced to prevent unsafe conditions like overcrowding. The IFP will promote the involvement of the parents, empower school principals, and well-trained, motivated educators. We will promote the enforcement of discipline in our schools through compliance to the school code of conduct. The IFP, we will ensure the development of high-tech classrooms of the future by promoting the use of technology like e-books and e-learning, while ensuring that all schools have access to internet. We will invest in in-service training for teachers and promote the support and development programs and reopen all the colleges of education that were closed down by the current government. Our country still needs teachers of high quality. We will therefore reopen the colleges of education that were closed down, and the majority of whom in this province of KwaZulu-Natal were built by the late Prince of Wapindangene, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Point number 6, healthcare. Trust us, we will help when you need the most help in your life. The South African health system faces a multitude of challenges that have hindered its ability to provide adequate healthcare services to its citizens. Tragically, the state of our healthcare system reflects a country in crisis. The IFP government will do the following in order to provide the maximum health system for the people of South Africa. We will champion the universal health coverage. Every South African must have equal access to equitable, accessible, quality, and state-sponsored health services. We will clamp down on corruption within the healthcare system while rooting out fruitless, wasteful, and irregular expenditure. We will fix key challenges such as understaffing, inadequate resources, poor leadership and management, and poor infrastructure in the public health sector. We will address vigorously the shortage of healthcare professionals including doctors. Under the IFP-led government, there will be no qualified medical doctor who will stay at home unemployed while vacant posts are many in the public hospitals. Under the IFP-led government, there will be no qualified professional nurse who will stay at home unemployed while there are vacancies in our hospitals. The IFP will ensure that we provide the best equipment in all our public hospitals in order to ensure that the citizens of our country receive the best medical attention. We will ensure that in each and every community, at a close proximity, there will be a clinic as a first point of call when a person is sick before going to the hospital. The IFP will promote the district health system and primary care model as crucial component of a functional health system. We will ensure that we reduce the high cost of medicine for all South Africans. We will ensure that we establish the provincial centers for medical innovation and research. We will improve service delivery and ensure the additional infrastructure in the national health laboratory services is provided. We will increase the support for the mental health services. We will invoice countries whose citizens are in South Africa. Any foreign national who is treated in a South African hospital, we will invoice the country of origin of that foreign national. We will not deprive a foreign national to get medical help, but we will make the country of origin responsible for its citizen. Point 7, the human settlements. Trust us for a safe and dignified homes. The IFP government will subsidize housing for citizens who cannot afford homes. We will implement a rent-to-own scheme by developing low-cost housing programs with the private sector with an ownership provision. We will ensure the development of social and affordable housing options and opportunities in partnership with the private sector. We will identify parcels of state land for development by provincial government and municipalities. We will roll out serviced sites to self-home building available to community forums and stock fairs. We will ensure the promotion of 10 key rural housing programs, development in rural communities with priorities given to people residing under Ingonyama Trust. We will ensure that the qualifying income for fully subsidized houses will be changed from 0 rand to 3,500 per month to 0 to 5,500 per month. We will introduce a housing benefit scheme for those earning above the subsidy threshold, because there is a missing middle who do not benefit in the current existing government housing scheme because their salary is a little bit above, but not necessary to allow them to build houses on their own. The IFP government, therefore, will introduce a housing benefit program for those earning above the sub-threshold. And we will eradicate the apartheid-style development in hostels and integrate the existing hostels into our communities. Here at eThekwini, we will eradicate the transit camps, which has been a living place for our people, which is a very unhealthy condition for many years. Point number 9, infrastructure. Trust us for service delivery. Functioning infrastructure is vital to deliver basic service delivery. The government's failure to deliver services has become par because it has been allowed to take down our country. Infrastructure has been allowed to be broken down. Roads have been damaged with no program to repair them. Potholes have become something we live with on a daily basis. The railway line system has been damaged. As a result, these trains that should be supporting our economy in transporting goods and coal in areas from Richards Bay has been affected tremendously. This has weakened our economy. The IFP-led government, therefore, will prioritize infrastructure. We will ensure the universal access to safe, affordable water and sanitation by 2020 and replace community water tanks with long-term solutions. The people of eThekwini, as I speak, are without water, which is a shame to the ruling party in this metro. The IFP will ensure that water resources are protected and preserved while strengthening the regulatory framework for water and sanitation, quality and safety. We will define the roles of provincial governments in water and sanitation management by ensuring regular government control and radiation for all water suppliers. The IFP will promote efficiently and manage the basic infrastructure grant provided to municipalities. The projects will be handled through a well-resourced and district-wide shared project management unity. This will avoid the current situation where many municipalities cannot spend their grants and return funding to the national government while the roads remain in a state of decay. We will prioritize the maintenance and upgrading of the existing infrastructure. We will promote the water treatment or recycling technologies and waste to energy project. We will partner with communities, especially women and differently able community members, to help deliver essential services, build houses, and lay pipes of water, electricity, and sanitation. Point number 9, transport. Trust us for a functioning transport system. The collapse of our rail network and the severe overburdening of our road network are crippling South Africa's economy and costing both lives and livelihoods. The impact of the government's failure to maintain and develop South Africa's transport system is so great that a phased approach is required, which will prioritize vital networks for immediate resuscitation. Through good governance, the IFP will incrementally bring key infrastructure and economic support mechanism back online. We will therefore do the following. We will fast-track the transformation of the transport industry to enhance efficiency by establishing public-private partnership. We will streamline regulations to simplify the regulatory framework to attract foreign investors and encourage competition, whilst avoiding the creation of monopolies within the sector. We will upgrade passenger transport services to urban communities and rural communities, thereby ensuring accessibility and safety. We will improve public transport infrastructure by ensuring that road, railway, and port infrastructure is well maintained and capable of supporting the economic and social activities. We will upgrade freight transportation by revitalizing rail and road freight to support the economic growth with a focus on efficiency and security. We will promote public and alternative modes of transport, such as the expansion of integrated bus and transit system. We will engage the taxi industry because we know that the taxi industry is the only industry that is owned and supported by black people in South Africa. We will create an opportunity to listen to the challenges the taxi owners experience when it comes to delays regarding the permits, which takes years before they are being released to owners. Point number 10, traditional leadership and governance. Trust us to respect traditional structures. From the very start, during the constitutional negotiation towards democracy, the IFP insisted that the Zulu monarch and the institution of Umkosi be recognized and have a role in a democratic South Africa. For decades, the IFP has pushed for the role, powers, and functions of traditional leaders to be defined well through legislation in South Africa. The IFP has consistently placed traditional leadership at the center of our local government strategy. Our founder, the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, championed the Ngonyama Trust to keep the communal land of the Zulu Kingdom under the custodianship of His Majesty the King, administered by traditional leaders, Amakosi, thereby giving families access to land to live and produce food. The IFP, therefore, in order to ensure our partnership with Amakosi, we will protect and sustain the institution of the traditional leadership. We will respect, capacitate, and adequately compensate traditional leaders, Amakosi and Izinduna. We will prioritize the protection and safety of our traditional leaders, as we all know that Amakosi and Izinduna have become a target of killings. The IFP will ensure, as a new government, either in KwaZulu-Natal or at a national level, that all Amakosi receives 24/7 protection against the assassination directed to the traditional institution. Councillors are being protected. Members of parliament are being protected. Why not, therefore, provide protection to Amakosi and Izinduna, as we see they are on the firing line through the assassinations that are occurring in our country. Point 11, access to land. Trust us for a place for you and your family. Land ownership is one of the contentious issues in South Africa. Land reform policies affect how South Africa produces its food, protects its food, protects its security, and seizes socio-economic opportunities. The resolution of the land issue carries with it the promise of healing the wounds of the past. Land has a social, spiritual, and economic value. It has the potential to be the foundation of the renewed economy of our country that we so critically need. The IFP-led government, when it comes to land ownership, will do the following. We will commission a full-scale land audit to determine who owns what, and use these findings to focus on state land, redistributing it where necessary, and supporting community projects to farm land commercially. We will reallocate all unused land that is in the hands of the state for the benefit of the poor. We will allocate specific support for modern agricultural and other developmental initiatives to redress imbalances of the past when it comes to land ownership. We will ensure significant state support, especially for new entrants into the agriculture industry. Point number 12. Environment. Trust us to secure tomorrow. The next 10 years in human history will be the most crucial for our survival in this planet. The world is facing a triple environmental crisis, which includes biodiversity loss, climate disruption, and ever-increasing pollution. The proliferation of single-use plastics has contributed significantly to this growing environmental crisis, with millions of tons of plastic waste ending up in our oceans, rivers, and landfills yearly. The IFP government therefore will do the following. We will engage all stakeholders, including workers, unions, communities, and business, to develop policies and strategies to promote a fair and equitable transition to a sustainable future. We will protect our wildlife, promote ethical and sustainable tourism, and ensure that the future generation can continue to enjoy our biodiversity. We will ensure that we protect the rhinos as a highly targeted animal species in our country. We will ensure that our community participate in the environmental education in order to ensure that we preserve our nature. And the last point among 13, you and your future. The IFP believes in empowering people towards self-help and self-reliance, which is one of our core philosophies. We also believe that the most vulnerable in our society deserve more care and support. We will do the following therefore. We will ensure a modern, functioning grant system that is fit for purpose and pays the correct grant recipients timelessly. We will review all grant categories and increase grants where necessary. The old age grant and child grant will be increased under the IFP-led government. Like all grants, we will link all grants to opportunities and training to uplift the recipients. We will combat the rise in social ills by ensuring that every community has access to social worker. The IFP will ensure that what has been done by the current government to close down the pain points that are closer to our community and causing them to be paid through banks. Many senior citizens are not satisfied with this option. We will create an opportunity of revisiting the advantages which our people had enjoyed in the past. Iqembu lenkatha inkululeko namhlanje lizokwethula phakathi kwenu umyalezo wethemba, umyalezo weningizimu neAfrika entsha, umyalezo onekusasa lentsha yakithi. izwe lakithi intsha yakithi kakhulukazi ebalelwa kuma-40 yamaphesenti ihlele ekhaya kayisebenzi. Ubugebengu buyazenzela kubantu bakithi. Abesifazane, izingane abakwazi ukuhamba emgwaqeni bephephile ngenxa yobugebengu. I-load shedding has destroyed our community. Osomabhizinisi bakithi abancane baphoqelekile ukuvala amabhizinisi abo ngenxa ye-load shedding. Namhlanje-ke iqembu le-IFP lizokwethula phakathi kwenu amaphuzu ali-13 okuyiwona azoba isixazululo kwinkinga eyibhekene neNingizimu ne-Afrika. Okokuqala esizokwenza ukudala amathuba emisebenzi. Yonke intsha ngaphansi kahulumeni wasekhaya iyovuka ekuseni iyofuna umsebenzi ibuye ntambama iwutholile. Yonke intsha engama-graduates ehlele ekhaya sizokwenza isiqiniseko ukuthi bathola isibonelelo semali engu-3,000 rand kuze kube bathola umsebenzi. Yonke intsha engama-graduates siyokwenza isiqiniseko ukuthi ifakwe ngaphansi ngomasipala, uhulumeni wesifundazwe nohulumeni omkhulu bathole ukuqeqeshwa ngesikhathi belungiselelwa ukuthi bathole amathuba omsebenzi. Akuba kubikho ngisho noyedwa udokotela oyohlala ekhaya, uthisha oyohlala ekhaya, umhlengikazi, usonhlalakahle, unjiniyela, bonke ayintsha yakithi bayoba namathuba okuqala ekutholeni amathuba omsebenzi eNingizimu Afrika. Okwesibili, sizolwa nobugebengu. Sizokhanda ama-police stage emphakathini la abantu bakithi bephila khona. Sizoqasha amaphoyisa amaningi ngokwenele ukuba akwazi ukubhekana nobugebengu ngqo ukuze umphakathi wakithi, izingane nabesifazane bakwazi ukuhamba bekhululekile ngaphandle kokwesaba izigebengu. Okwesithathu, mayelana nabantu abavela emazweni angaphandle, iqembu le-IFP likholelwa ukuthi iNingizimu ne-Afrika yizwe labantu base-South Africa. Kodwa uma kukhona abantu bamazwe angaphandle abaseNingizimu ne-Afrika, kumele kube khona amaphepha aqondile ukuthi bangobani, bahlala kuphi, futhi bazobuyela nini emazweni abo. Lona umgomo okhona kumhlaba wonke. Amathuba omsebenzi ingxenye engu-80% sifuna ukuba inikezwe abantu baseNingizimu ne-Afrika. Zonke izinkampani uma ziqasha sizoshaya umthetho abazothwala kanzima uma bewephulile ukuqinisekisa ukuthi imisebenzi enjengokusebenza ema-restaurant, imisebenzi enjengokusebenza kuma-construction companies, imisebenzi enjengokushayela ama-truck, imisebenzi enjengokushayela ama-Uber yenziwa ngabantu baseNingizimu ne-Afrika. Ama-spaza shop emalokishini abantu bakithi abansundu, onke ama-tuck shop emalokishini abantu bakithi abansundu azobuyela kubantu bakithi abansundu. ithala bank lizolekelela ngokuba linikeze osomabhizinisi bakithi abansundu imali yokuba baqalise kabusha umnotho ukuze umnotho the township economy ibuyele njengoba yayikhona ngaphambi kwesikhathi sodlame. Lokhu akuhlangene ne-xenophobia. Iqembu le-IFP alikho xenophobic, kodwa lithi abantu baseNingizimu Afrika akube yibona abeza kuqala uma kuza kumathuba omsebenzi nazo zonke izinsiza ezitholakala kuhulumeni. Ugesi, uhulumeni we-IFP uyoqinisekisa ukuthi load shedding siyayiqeda nya, ngoba i-load shedding eyalo uhulumeni osemandleni. Masikhipha uhulumeni osemandleni siyokhipha ne-load shedding, siqhamuke namasu ayokwazi ukuba adale ukukhiqizwa kukagesi okuzokwenza impilo yabantu baseNingizimu Afrika ibe ngcono. Ngesikhathi nibukela umyalezo weqembu lenkatha yenkululeko, kodwa kasinikezane futhi indlebe. Ngaphansi kwezemfundo, iqembu le-IFP liyoqeqesha kabusha othisha beqophelo eliphezulu. Siyovula kabusha amakolishi ezemfundo la kuqeqeshwa khona othisha bethu, ukuze sinikeze othisha bethu ithuba lokuvuselela amakhono abo nokuqeqeshwa njengabantu abalungisa ikusasa lentsha yakithi. Kwezempilo sizoqinisekisa ukuthi wonke umuntu waseNingizimu Afrika uthola ukunakekelwa kwezempilo okusezingeni elifaneleyo. Sizokwakha amaklinikhi abeseduze kubantu bakithi la behlala khona. Siqinisekise ukuthi izibhedlela ziba nokulekelelwa ngodokotela abanele, ngabahlengazi abanele, ngezinsiza ezanele, ukuze ngabe bikho umuntu uma efika esibhedlela angakutholi ukunakekelwa okufaneleyo. Sizokwakhela abantu bakithi izindlu ezibanikeza isithunzi, indlu nendlu ezokwakhiwa uhulumeni we-IFP, iyothi uma iqeda ukwakhiwa ifakelwe i-solar panel, ukuze uma ingena khona umuntu angene kwindlu enogesi, aphume emthwalweni wokuphila kanzima ngenxa ye-load shedding. Sizoqikelela ukuthi imigwaqo yakithi iba sezingeni elifaneleyo. Ama-potholes ayoba yinto yokuqala emgwaqeni kahulumeni wesifundazwe nemigwaqo kahulumeni kazwelonke. Siyokwehlisa imali eningi iye komasipala, ukuze omasipala bakwazi ukubhekana nengqalasizinda. Siyoqikelela ukuthi ezokuthutha ziba sezingeni elifaneleyo. Siyovuselela ezezitimela, amabhasi emphakathini yakithi. Siphinde futhi sibe nengxoxo ekhethekile nemboni yosomatekisi, ukuze sikwazi ukubalalela bese siqhamuka namasu kukho konke okuzidingo zemboni yosomatekisi, ngoba ukuphela kwemboni eyasungulwa nephethwe ngabantu abansundu. Siyokhanda-ke iy'nhlelo zokubalalela kuqala anduba siqhamuke nokuthi siyongenelela kanjani uma sekuza kwezokuthutha ikakhulukazi imboni yosomatekisi sizoqinisekisa ukuthi umhlaba abantu bakithi abampofu nabaswele kakhulu bathola ubunikazi bomhlaba umhlaba ongaphansi kahulumeni ongenziwa lutho siyowuthatha siwabele abantu bakithi ngoba umhlaba iyona nto yokuqala eyenza umuntu akwazi ukunotha ngoba enomhlaba osegameni lakhe akwazi ukulima kuwo akhiqize ukudla adle nomndeni wakhe adayise ukuze akwazi ukuthola imali yokuphila bonke abantu abasemkhakheni wezokulima siyoqhamuka nohlelo lokubaxhasa ukuqinisekisa ukuthi ezokulima ziba umgogodla womnotho wokufukula izwe lethu ezemvelo siyoqikelela ukuthi ezemvelo ziyongiwa ukongela isizukulwane sakusasa nokukhanda umphakathi onempilo ehlanzekileyo njengeqembu lenkatha yenkululeko ngakho-ke sibophezela ukuba sisebenzele ikusasa lenu siyazibophezela ukuba yizwi lenu kwizidingo zenu esenikhale iminyaka kodwa ngenxa kahulumeni ongenazi indlebe nongenawo amehlo kuze kube manje abantu bakithi abakayitholi inkululeko efaneleyo. You can trust us because we have a track record. Almost 50 years the IFP has been a champion of democracy, freedom and justice, serving the poor and the vulnerable while creating a country in which we can all thrive. At the negotiating table, it was the IFP that secured the creation of provinces and the inclusion of the Bill of Rights in our democratic constitution. As part of the government of national unity, we were instrumental in transforming the full body law in South Africa to reflect the values of a constitutional democracy. We have a track record in KwaZulu-Natal. We governed for 10 years, growing the provincial economy and putting the power of governance in the hands of the people of this province. We therefore seek to serve you in 2024 because we know from experience that we can make South Africa work and thrive. Our proven record of service delivery and integrity gives you every reason why you should vote the IFP. 2024, it is the time to return to a government that delivers, a government that actually builds houses that last longer, that are still standing and have to be built with the scrap left over after someone's pocket is lined through tender fraud. 2024, it is time to bring back the IFP to governance. Under the IFP, KwaZulu-Natal had the country's best education system, which constantly proved its learners' capability of obtaining the highest scores without the need of lowering the pass rate in order to boost the province's overall performance. All schools in KwaZulu-Natal, as I speak, have literally fallen apart with broken windows, collapsing roofs. We are confronted by this government's inability to act. The IFP has fixed broken systems before, and we can do it again. Before South Africa's liberation, Inkatha Freedom Party, under the erstwhile KwaZulu government, built more than 6,000 classrooms. Therefore, this year is a year to bring the IFP back, because we have a record when it comes to education. It is the IFP under Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi that took an initiative to open a branch of the University of Zululand at Umlazi, thereby enfranchising our black youth and adults to access tertiary education and vocational training. And above all, it is Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi who championed the establishment of the Mangosuthu University of Technology to advance the vocational skills of our people. It is Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi who championed the establishment of Itala Bank, which was solely whose interest was to give the financial support to black people who were entering in the economic sphere. It is the KwaZulu government under the IFP that ensured that the townships like Ulundi, Enseleni, Wamashu, Madadeni, Osizweni, and Eskawini came to existence. Once again, if we can be given an opportunity, we will build decent townships. We will eradicate all squatter camps and informal settlement. The IFP has been a champion of the disadvantaged. In 2002, it is the IFP's premier of KwaZulu-Natal who demonstrated the power of the provincial autonomy by pioneering the distribution of life-saving antiretroviral drugs to prevent the transmission of HIV and AIDS from mothers to their newborn babies, saving hundreds of thousands of lives. Even now, the IFP will be the champion on behalf of the vulnerable and the poor. The IFP therefore believes 2024 is a year where every South African, the 27.6 million people, must go to the voting station and vote for change, and vote against unemployment, and vote against load shedding, and vote against corruption. 2024 is a protest year, but protesting through our vote. Our people have protested enough, have blocked roads enough, have banned tires enough. The current government does not hear nor listen. The only language they will hear is on the 29th of May, that stop burning tires, stop blocking roads, but wake up on the 29th of May with the power in your hand, your vote. And when you arrive on the voting station, vote for a political party that you can trust, a political party that does not make empty promises and create false hopes, but a political party that will implement a program of action that will bring change, not 5 years later, but now. 2024 elections is like 1994 elections. In 1994, we went to the voting stations and queued for more than 2 days because we wanted to remove a government of the apartheid regime which was not helping us. Therefore, 2024 is our 1994. 2024, let us go to the polling stations and protest with our vote and remove the government that has destroyed the dreams and aspirations of our youth, that has destroyed our country's economy and forcing us to be on the brink of being a failed state. 2024 is a year of removing a government that subjects our people to darkness during the night when they take electricity through load shedding, as 3 weeks ago we were on stage 6. Another 5 years is hard to contemplate. And if we can make a mistake and allow a government that has failed us to go back to power, we are heading for a disaster. We are heading for a crisis. It is now or never. The elections in 2024 is wafa. The elections in 2024, umkhumla jazz, lolu khetho lufana ncamashi noluka 1994. Ngo-1994 sasukuma sonke sasivota ukuyokhipha uhulumeni ongasenzeli lutho. Ngo-2024 asiphinde okufanayo. Bonke abantu baseningizimu neAfrika abawu-27.6 million asukumeni sonke ngomhla ka-29 May siyobhikisha ngevoti lethu. Seniwashisile amathayi kwanele, senivalile imigwaqo kwanele, senitoyitoyizile kwanele. Lo hulumeni akezwa vele, kodwa iyodwa into ayizwayo uyivoti. Ngomhla ka-29 May, therefore, the manifesto esiyethula namhlanje isona sixazululo esikwazi ukusibeka phambi kwenu. Isona sibopho esithi uma ningasinikeza ithuba njengeqembu le-IFP sizodala imisebenzi, sizoqeda ukucinywa kagesi, sizonakhela izindlu, sizokwenza ama-police stage nokuqashwa kwamaphoyisa kulethe ezokuphepha kini, sizokwenza ama-clinic nezibhedlela benze impilo yenu ibe ngephephile. Ngakho-ke sinimema nonke nabo bonke abasibukela emakhaya. The 13-point plan is something easy to hold the IFP accountable. Amaphuzu ali-13 kuyoba lula ukuba nina njengomphakathi nikwazi ukusehlulela ukuthi sikwazile yini ukuthi esiwethembisile sakufeza. Ngakho-ke sengiwenzile umsebenzi ebengithunywe kuwo isigungu seqembu le-IFP ukuba ukuzokwethula imanifesto usomqulu walokho esikwethembisa isakhamuzi zaseningizimu neAfrika. Ngakho ke thatha ke leli thuba lokuba ngisho ukuthi iqembu le-IFP lindikela kini ngimemezele ukuthi imanifesto yeqembu le-IFP seyethuliwe phambi kwabantu baseningizimu neAfrika. Manifesto ye-IFP sesiyibeke ezandleni zenu. Hambani kanye nathi sibambane ngezandla umuntu nomuntu siyothi ngomhla ka-29 May sizosukuma siyonqoba sinqobele izwe lethu sinqobele izizukulwane zethu sinqobele iy'ngane zethu. U-2029 May usuku lwenkululeko ngokwezombusazwe. Asibambaneni-ke ngezandla sonke sivotele iqembu le-IFP, iqembu ongalethemba, iqembu elingezuwenqena ukubuya lizosho ukuthi inqubekela phambili sihambe kangakanani. Vote the IFP for 29 May elections because the IFP is a party you can trust. Partner with us, go with us in fixing the problems of our country, in redirecting our country towards the right direction, in giving a new direction and reviving the dreams, aspirations and hopes of the people of South Africa. We can do it. Let us go and do it on the 29th of May. On that day, we will issue a red card to a political party that has failed us. Phambili the IFP, phambili. Phambili the IFP, phambili. Asambe siyovota ngomhla ka-29 May, asambe. Ngomhla ka-29 May usuku lwe-IFP, asambe siyovota, asambe. Siyabonga.
Sicela sonke
Well, those are the scenes here at Moses Mabhida Stadium, and you heard there from the president of the Inkatha Freedom Party, Velenkosini Hlabisa. Zwei, Dr. Ronesh, a very quick look at what Mr. Hlabisa himself, after going through his speech, summarized here for the crowd present. That's the IFP's 13-point plan, of which they highlight 10 very sharply. So again, just quickly, what stands out for you from that?
Well, what stands out for me is the issue around the putting South Africa first, around the issue of infrastructure, around the issue of load shedding that has always been the case. And then overall, outside of what he is saying, he is actually saying on the 29th of May, when we go vote, we must go as South Africans to protest because in his view, the country is failing if not failed already.
Dr. Ranesh?
I think for me, Sakina, the thing that stands out for me is still the operative phrase which they use in 2019, trust us. And I think what they are trying to do is they're trying to create a binary with the ANC. They're trying to create a binary with the ANC leadership that has technically failed, the country, technically failed South Africa. So they are saying that we have been, governing this province between 1994 to 2004. So using that kind of record, using the legacy of Dr. Mangosuthu Buthelezi as well, so that's why they still stuck to this. They could have easily changed it. 2019, 5 years later, trust us, there has to be some kind of reasoning behind that. And just using that emotional attachment with and to the late Dr. Buthelezi, I think that for me is huge, especially when Dr. Buthelezi passed on last year, September. And I think that for me is very powerful. It's symbolic for the party to say that here's a guy who did so much for this country. He brought about this movement in 1975. Not one single case of corruption was actually leveled against Dr. Buthelezi. And that for the party is the legacy of Dr. Buthelezi and the legacy of the IFP. And that's why you need to trust the IFP come May 29 in this election. You can be the change that the IFP actually wants to bring to KZN and to this country.
Well, it was, of course, one of the longest speeches in these election manifesto. I thought for a moment there he was trying to rival the late Dr. Mangosuthu Buthelezi. You remember that marathon speech he gave over a number of days in the KZN legislature. Well, just to quickly summarize those 13 points. Number one, at least the 10 that they do highlight, the IFP will rebuild the economy by ending load shedding through a mixed, diversified energy system. Then the IFP will put South Africans first by reserving those job opportunities and the small enterprise market for South Africans while enforcing a set of 80-20 employment target. They'll also improve the healthcare system, increasing the old age and child support grants, expanding the food voucher system. They will put poor and urban rural communities first and will partner with and support traditional leaders. The IFP promises to continue to advocate for the protection and support of the Ingonyama Trust and also look at that as a model of ensuring that everyone has access to land. Put South Africans first by prioritizing safety, including ending the illegal migration crisis. The IFP will roll out free basic education while reforming NSFAS so that it delivers on its mandate of empowering the youth. They also promise to roll out an unemployed graduate grant of 3,000 Rand, and this for a fixed period to assist graduates to find meaningful employment and also redirect some of the billions spent on the CETAs. And they say that this will ensure that all graduates are given a 12-month internship at municipalities. And finally, number 10 of the points that they want to highlight, the IFP will curb data costs. Data will remain anti-poor, if not. So that's what the IFP is promising. Your final words, very briefly.
Well, as they say, proof is in the pudding.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Yes. I just got that one mixed up. So clearly, everyone is promising something. So when all is said and done, should they be given the opportunity by South Africans, will they be able to carry what they are saying through? Or it's easier said than done? Because if you know you are not there yet, it's easier to promise versus when you are just about to be there, because you will be called upon to do as you promised.
Dr. Renesh?
Sakina, I think from my side would be just one very clear, important message for the IFP is that just remember your identity. Your identity in terms of 90% of your support actually originates from this province, KZN. You've got support in places like Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and obviously nationally. So remember that identity. Don't punch above your weight. Remember that constituency that you actually need to appeal to. That constituency is not out of KZN. To a certain degree, you can market yourself in the political marketplace of political ideas leading up to this election in other provinces. We saw in 2019, the IFP did not increase in all the other provinces. They actually declined. Never mind the NFP was in the picture, was on the decline. The ANC also lost around 1.5 million votes, but the IFP still declined in those provinces. So what I'm saying is, remember your constituency. Actually take your manifesto, campaign among that core constituency, and that core constituency could perhaps be drawn back to you and actually elevate your vote share come 29 May in this election.
Well, Dr. Ronesh Doraj and Mzwai Mbeche, thanks so much. And that wraps up the big five for us here on SABC News in terms of the election manifesto launches. We started with the EFF, who gave us 7 key pillars. Then that was followed by the Democratic Alliance. They also had 7. The ANC had 6. Freedom Front Plus presented 10, and the IFP 13, of which they highlight 10. So that's the big five. All the other parties, of course, have their own manifestos that you can also wade through. But this is where we're going to leave it here at Moses Mabhida Stadium. Elections 2024, as someone said, 29th of May. That's when South Africa will have its IQ test. With that, it's back to the studio in Auckland Park.